You want to race for pink slips?
The pink slips?
Today I've got the Jansno X70. Here it is. This is one of those bikes where if you saw it online, you would have some serious questions. And I say that because of the price. Let's just get that right out of the way. Currently they have this thing on sale for $1,100. That's right, $1,100 for an e-bike is pretty cheap. And I feel like you could make a pretty decent e-bike these days for around the $1,000 price point. If you're going with lightweight components, you know, a road style bike, so you can use a little tiny battery, then your brakes don't have to be as heavy duty. That's kind of like the easy way to go with an affordable bike. But they didn't do that. This, for $1,100, has two batteries. This is a 48 volt, 14 amp hour. This one is even bigger. I think if I have which one is which correct, this one is a 20 amp hour. So a total of 34 amp hours. So you're getting a 50, 60, 70 mile range on throttle only, or mostly throttle. It does have full suspension. It has turn signals front and rear. It's got kind of these cool looking spoked mag wheels on here. Why is it so cheap? You know, is this company making any money on these things? Are they just trying to get rid of them? Is it one of those deals that's just too good to be true and you're gonna pay the money and not actually get the bike? Did they cut costs just to focus on the things people are asking for, like two batteries and full suspension, and maybe some of the other things about the bike aren't so great? So thankfully, I've got the bike in my hands, and this is not the first Jansno bike I have reviewed. So I think I can answer all of these questions and tell you exactly what you're gonna get if you buy one of these. So first off, if you pay the $1,100, are you gonna get a bike? Absolutely. These are real. There's no funny business going on. They've sent me one before for review. That one was equally as impressive on the cost. The X50, I just checked it recently and it still sells on Amazon for like 850 bucks. That's kind of a similar style of bike, but a single battery version. So what they've done is created a very affordable bike, and I think the way they've done it is by picking and choosing the most affordable components they can, so that overall the price is very, very low, but it gets the things most people want. Most people ask for more range. I've never seen anybody ask for less range. They want bigger batteries, they want more batteries. Most people ask for a lower price. Not a surprise there either. People are not asking for a frame that looks nicer, has nicer welds. That just kind of is something we expect at a certain price point, and I'll be honest, a nice looking frame with nice welds is not what you're getting on a Jansno. Now, it's not bad as far as I think it's going to like break or fail, but when most frames these days I'm seeing on bikes are trying to do seamless welds and these nice flowing curves and, you know, making the frames lightweight, they're just not. You can absolutely see the weld marks everywhere on this thing, but they're not top quality welds. Like, they are definitely pumping these things out as quickly and as cheaply as they can. I don't really have any concerns riding it from a safety perspective. Like, it looks sturdy and stout. If we look down here, you can see some like splatter. Basically, that's when you're welding and little bits are kind of popping off and getting stuck to the frame. Instead of cleaning those chunks off, they just left them there and painted over them. They just said, it's fine, it's good enough. Those are not the things you're gonna see on a name brand e-bike. But if your budget calls for a $1,000 e-bike and that's what you can afford, then maybe this is okay, and you're gonna say, I don't care if the frame isn't perfect. I want the range, and it doesn't matter. Now, that's not to say this doesn't use some name brand components, however. We can see Shimano for the shifter. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 speed. I see this on bikes costing anywhere from 2 times to 3 times as much. The wheels look really nice. My only gripe about wheels like this is that they're typically really, really heavy, but to be honest, they do look super cool. Now, the tires, which I think was a nice choice going with this kind of natural colored sidewall, they're from Chow Yang, and they have the hippo skin, which means they have this like thick lining on the inside. So these are actually thorn and flat resistant. Interesting that they went with that because I would think that would cost them more money. So not sure how they ended up with that. Maybe they got a good deal on these. But the Chow Yang tires are tires I've used on bikes for, well, close to 10 years actually now. And they've actually been really good. They're reasonably priced, and I've had tires with the same tread pattern go like 3,000–4,000 miles. Now, something that's of growing concern is battery safety, UL batteries. These are not UL listed batteries. That's not a requirement in the US. It's not a requirement in most states yet, and tons of companies do not have UL listed batteries. I just want to point out that they're not, but most e-bike brands these days aren't. Very few. It's becoming more common, but I would say the average e-bike company, even name brands, are not UL listed yet. Now, on the plus sides for this, when most e-bikes do not come with turn signals, it's starting to be more common, but generally speaking, most have, I would say, integrated lights these days, but not turn signals. This has signals not only in the back, but also in the front. So that surprises me that that's an area where they put some extra effort into this. The headlight is really big and bright. So this thing is actually pretty usable for a commute and riding at night. And then as far as the brakes go, that's an area where they definitely save some money. We're seeing more and more hydraulic brakes on e-bikes. These are mechanical brakes. They're 160 millimeter rotors, which I think are a little bit on the small side. You can see the Jansno logo. So they're having some sort of inexpensive mechanical brake made up for them. That is kind of as cheap as you can get for brakes on bicycles these days. Kickstand is what is a more inexpensive style. They're a little bit sturdier these days, but it works. Fenders are plastic, but actually feel really sturdy and I would say very usable. The rear shock doesn't have any adjustment, but doesn't look too bad. I'll feel it out a little bit more, try and hit some bumps on it. The saddle so far actually feels pretty comfortable. And front suspension fork wise, we have this very inexpensive looking triple tree front fork, axles bolted on. I think it's gonna get the job done. Definitely not something you're gonna wanna ride off-road. I tried it a little bit on the X70 bike and it did it, but the fork felt kind of clunky when you get into some bumps. It really is just kind of a road-going bike in my opinion. Now, if we get up to the handlebars, this is where I think things get a little, not weird, but maybe like cost became clearly more important than functionality. Now, super cool, like I said, that it has turn signals. Funny enough, I just noticed this. Check your turn signals if you get one of these, because if I turn the switch to the left, my right signal goes on. And if I turn it to the right, my left signal goes on. Let's see if the back is mixed up. So I've got right signal going on and left signal going on. So that's easy enough to fix. These just need to be swapped. Thankfully, it's just a plug. Here's our headlight button. See, that's a big LED in there. I like that. And then finally, a horn, which is decently loud. These people coming down the road probably thought I was honking at them. So that all seems pretty nice. Where do things fall apart? It's the keys. It's the keys for me. Look at this. I have a total of 6 keys. Now, can't fault them too much because really we've got 3 sets, but that is a little overkill. I can't fault them for having 2 sets for the separate batteries. I know it can be hard with manufacturers to find a matching set on nicer bikes. You will get maybe 4 keys, but they're all keyed the same, so you don't have 2 different sets of battery keys. But then on top of that, they have put a throttle in that has a key switch on it. I think I had somebody ask in the previous video what this was for, and I didn't explain it. You don't see these on bikes very often anymore. Cost-wise, I'm sure they was very inexpensive to buy these, but this is actually like an ignition. The key won't come out once you turn it to the on position. And unless this is on, see, the display won't turn on. So, I mean, it's kind of nice as a security feature, but if you lose this, your bike won't work. Turn the key on and then turn on the on button over here. And it just feels out of place because now I have to have, like I said, 3 sets of keys to turn the bike on and remove both batteries, but everything works. So I'm not gonna fault it for functionality or reliability or anything like that. I just think it's weird that it comes with so many keys. I guess it just bugs me. Now the display is honestly perfectly fine. It's black and white, and it's got the basic stuff on it, speed. You've got the assist levels, which it has 5, and we have odometer, trip meter, shows the battery voltage, better than average. I always like it when they have the voltage on there. So if you kind of look at the components electrically, aside from the weird key thing, it's actually pretty good. The only things that aren't so nice on this are the frame itself, just the build quality, just kind of so-so, and then the brakes being mechanical. Now the frame is just, like I said, I think it's just looks. I think it's going to be perfectly functional. I don't feel like it's going to break, so I'm not worried about it. In its defense, I suppose if you stand back about this far, you're not going to see those flaws. From 10 feet away, it looks pretty good. And the brakes are something that you could fix. You could swap them out to some hydraulics. So I suppose in hindsight, if the worst things I have to say about it are a little bit of splatter on the frame from the welding process and that the brakes could be upgraded, I mean, for 1,100 bucks, that still makes this thing a steal. So let's take this thing for a spin, feel out the suspension, the brakes, see if I can find anything wrong with this, or if I find any other things that I like about it. Throttle is disabled on assist 0. If we turn it to 1, and it goes. The throttle does limit the assist settings a little bit, so if you have it on 2, it gives you a little more than 1. 3 gives you more. So you gotta crank it up to 5 to get full throttle. Lots of bikes are set up that way. Some people like it, some people don't. So one thing this has that I'm not a huge fan of, it's not the end of the world, but it could be a little better. There is a little bit of a delay with the assist. So if I start pedaling, turn around here, feels like it takes like almost a full rotation for it to pick up. And then when I stop pedaling, I'm gonna tell you when I stop pedaling and then when the motor stops. So I'm gonna stop pedaling right now. And there's the motor stopping. It takes like a full 2 seconds for the motor to actually stop once you stop pedaling. Let me just hit the brakes and make sure they cut it off immediately. Yeah, the brakes will cut the motor instantly. So if you need to stop, you can. Crazy kids. But if you're just trying to pedal along and you stop pedaling, it's like, oh wait, you want to stop? Okay. That's a flaw in my opinion in the controller. Probably something they could change with a different firmware or something. Now on the plus side, a lot of bikes in this style are really hard to pedal. Now if I sit where it's most comfortable for my arms and everything, then my knees are a little bit cramped. I'm about 5'10", but it's not terrible. Like, I can pedal it like this, but the seat height is actually fairly tall on this bike. So I guess the downside is if you're one of the shorter riders, you know, this bike might not be terribly comfortable. But if you're in like the 5.5 foot range or so on up, you're gonna be just fine. Now the saddle is fairly long. So I have a lot of room I can scoot back on. So if I was like 6 foot, I could still ride this thing quite comfortably. And at my height of 5'10", if I actually wanted to pedal a lot, I could scoot back on the saddle a little bit, kind of stretch my arms out, and now my knees aren't so cramped. Still not quite as high as a saddle position as I'd like it to be for, you know, a normal bicycle, but good enough for an e-bike that I feel like I could put in a decent amount of effort on this and definitely extend the range of the ride. I don't really need to because I got like 34 amp hours of battery capacity on board. Realistically, I would feel confident hopping on this thing, hitting the throttle and going 40, 50 miles and really not worrying about if I'm gonna make it to my destination or not. Let's see, is the bike stable? Steering feels a little funky. I'm not sure quite what it is. So I'm gonna crank the power up to 5 and just cruise on up this hill. We're gonna go up one side and then up the other, which is much, much steeper. So power-wise, let's feel it out up this hill, see what I think, and then I'll splice in the results from the dyno run. Let's see if it can haul me up this hill without pedaling. I think it can. I think it's gonna slow down quite a bit, but I think it'll do it. Five miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour. It struggled a little bit with that. So torque-wise, it's maybe a little bit lacking. But let me show you the actual numbers, what this has for both torque and peak wattage. This is a 750 watt bike, so as long as it does at least that, it's gonna be as good as advertised. I have tested the Jansno X50 before. That one's right here on the board. Despite being the cheapest, not the least powerful, it actually had about 910 watts and did about 25 foot-pounds of torque on our dyno test. So this being from the same company, having the same really affordable price, I expect is going to do similar. Let's give it full throttle in 3, 2, 1. Come on. Oh. And I'm actually getting 906 watts. This one's reading just shy of 24 foot-pounds of torque. The other one, I got actually 25. So I was hoping for a little more because of the dual batteries, and we didn't quite get it. So this controller may be different. This controller may be programmed a little bit differently. That's a small enough difference. It could be the wheels or the tires even. 906 watts. So it's not breaking any records on power, but it might be breaking some records on range for the price. Front fork actually doesn't feel too bad. So the suspension actually feels pretty decent. Like I said, I wouldn't really take this thing off road. It wouldn't be really comfortable for that, but it's gonna soak up all the bumps on road just fine. You wanna race for pink slips?
The pink slips? 3, 2, 1.
I think they both cheated. Now, to be fair, they both are significantly lighter than I am. So if I was to change one thing on this bike, it would just be upgrade the brakes. I mean, that's really easy to do. I would probably either just swap out to some hydraulic calipers like these, or I would swap out to a full hydraulic system, and then I would probably bump the rotors up, or maybe do those at the same time. So that's something that I think would be worth spending the extra money on, and bring the price up another 100, 200 bucks for some good brakes. So then you're in this bike for like, say, 1,300. That's still really cheap for the amount of battery capacity that this thing has. So I think this is gonna end up kind of the same as what my thoughts were on the X50 bike, which is that if you want really nice quality, fit and finish, you know, really nice looking frame, paint, just the way the whole bike comes together, then you're gonna be disappointed by a few of the things on this bike. If you can overlook those kinds of things and you just don't care if the paint is perfect or if the frame welds are perfect and price is the most important thing to you, then I really do think this could just be a bargain. It's a cheap bike, it's affordable, but I really can't find anything majorly wrong with it. Everything works. The pedal assist, could it be a little better? Yeah. So tell me what you guys think. Is this one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's just so cheap, it's actually worth it? Or, nope, the quality's just not quite good enough, I'm gonna spend a little bit more. I wanna hear what your thoughts are. But thanks again to Jansno for sending out the X70 to me. Honestly, when I'm on the bike and I'm riding it, I forget about all the little imperfections and flaws, and it's just as much fun to ride as any other e-bike. Like I said, I did also check out the X50. I just saw that one is still on sale for like $850, and you can see that video right here. I'll put a link in the description to where you can get one of these if you want to pick one up.